With the Night King defeated, Daeny's forces head south to face off against Cersei and her armies. A conflict they may find a bit more complicated than facing off with unending waves of undead. But that's people for you. The last war is about to begin on Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our review of Game of Thrones. So, yes, of course, spoilers are talked about profusely throughout this entire review. Also want to remind any newcomers about our quick jump index system. I tend to talk a little bit, go on a little long. Maybe you want to jump ahead. Maybe later you want to come back, jump to your favorite spot. We'll just take a look down in the description below. We'll have a full listing of this review, sort of broken up into little chapters, quick little time jumps you can click onto. Watch the review in any order you want. So, before I get into tonight's episode, do want to take a moment and talk a little bit about last week's The Long Night. Has split our fandom quite a bit here. A few people had some issues with the episodes, and I completely understand that. Looking through actually all the criticism really sort of breaks down into two main points. The first off, it was dark. It was a dark episode. Could not see a lot. And I even brought that up in last week's review, talking about, shouldn't they have set some fires off or something in the distance to sort of brighten up the giant dark battlefield. And I know that was just, we like to see things. This is a big battle. We don't want to be left in the dark. And HBO did come back with sort of a comment about, well, if you looked at the app, it's going to look a little differently if it's on your computer. Maybe you need to turn up your brightness settings. And let's face it, that's BS, okay? Nobody should be having to adjust their television, especially for any episode. I mean, honestly, my TV is generally turned up higher on the brightness anyway. I'm a gamer. There's a lot of dark video games. I don't like things hiding off in corners. So I tend to run my TV a little brighter than normal anyway. And it was still dark. Also, the app, I'm actually watching it on the HBO app, so it should have looked just fine. So, really, the criticism that the problem was us resetting our TVs, no. You shoot it the way people want to see it. If it's too dark, that's on you. However, as I also mentioned last week, to me the darkness worked. Yes, there's a lot of stuff I would have liked to have seen more, but I thought it worked well as giving that sense of foreboding, that unknown force. Seeing the Dothraki lights just disappear in the darkness, hearing the sounds of this onrushing army and not being able to see anything, know how far away they are, know what they're composed, ready yourself. To me, it just amped up the horror, terror aspect of the episode. So, for the most part, it actually worked. I would have liked a little tweaking, a little setting. It shouldn't have stayed that dark for that long. I mean, there's a lot of changes in that lighting-wise that should have happened. But I completely understand where people are upset with that. The second one, of course, is the Great War, the battle with the Night King. We've been teasing this since the first episode, this big threat coming to us, the massing armies and breaking the wall and terrorizing and bringing an army of the dead at you. And the entire Great War has lasted one night. Yeah, again, fair criticism. Part of this makes me think that just the size and scope of the series, we're going into the last season. This battle was already monumentally huge, large, very expensive. It took a whole lot of time to shoot. And I'm thinking that they're just like, we want to get through this. People are often kind of like the nudity in the early, in the first couple of seasons. As an adult show, that was all very interesting. Ooh, sexy, nice. And then it started drifting away because I think they understood, us as the audience were like, great, naked butts is awesome. Can we get back to the story? I think maybe in some ways this was that as well, is that the big scary Night King is a great imposing, threatening environmental force, a force of nature coming at you that you can't stop, but it has no motivation. I think there's a lot of ways like this is a threat that we need to deal with, but the more interesting storytelling is really with Cersei and King's Landing and the sort of political intrigue and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't really give any reasons of why they made the choices. I think maybe we should have stretched this out a few more episodes, had some wins, had some losses, some real back and forth. But that would have been big and expensive. And again, maybe they just wanted to give us a big hoorah and then move on to the rest of the story. So, I mean, that's the only guess that I could give with that. I'm not, again, making any excuses here. I thought it was a rousing episode personally, but I completely understand everybody that was like, so that's it? That's it? That's our big, dark, evil, 1,000-year-old force, and it's done in one night. Okay. Well, wasn't expecting Arya. All right, so this week's episode, The Last of the Starks. Another kind of one of those middle ground episodes. We've had our big battle. Now we have to sort of move and adjust and reset all of our chess pieces for the next big battle to come. So, I mean, again, not a whole lot of action, but a lot of story development. Really, this episode is starting to see how the tides are changing. Not only with just the battle against Cersei between Daeny and Cersei and for the Iron Throne, but really all the background intrigue and, in fact, how the tide is starting to turn against Daeny, even within her own group, her own set of advisors and stuff. So again, real kind of, we're starting to see the sea change right here, how everyone's starting to reposition themselves, but how everything is really... We're seeing Daeny start to fall into some of her worst inclinations, and we're starting to see her advisors go, oh my gosh, what we were afraid of. Can we stem this, or do we have to start looking at options, especially now that some options have really started to arise. I think it was a really well done episode. It certainly used its time. Part of me was thinking like, oh my god, it took 90 minutes, it took one night to defeat the Night King, but it's going to take forever to say goodbye to everyone. There was a lot happening. And again, I understand we have to move these story elements. Again, especially since there's only 2 episodes left after this. So a lot of stuff has to happen. So starting things off with kind of our big goodbyes. Cremation. It's going to be a new standard in the North, I think. We'll honor the dead, and also just in case there's any White Walkers that might have happened to have survived through the evening. So I thought it was a great opening scene, having everybody kind of standing together against, giving honor to the dead. We get to see how many of them. They were saying thousands. Didn't necessarily look like that many to me, but I understand the idea. We had nice goodbyes, kind of personal bits. Daeny saying goodbye to Jorah, shedding a tear. Wouldn't he have appreciated that so much? Sansa saying goodbye to Theon, giving him the Stark pin. You'll always be a Stark. Again, very emotional bits. And even Sam saying goodbye to Ed, and Arya saying goodbye to Beric. Again, kind of a surprising moment. He was on the list, and yet he died to save her in many ways. So a lot of that honoring. I mean, I love those moments. I thought Jon had a great speech about these people saved the world. We will never be able to pay them back. We should remember and honor. A very strong speech from a strong leader, a very kingly speech. And we can see how that affects on Daeny and how that sort of progresses throughout the episode. She is the threat of who Jon is now really starting to establish itself and really starting to turn her minds, which again sort of makes all of this go on, pushes Jon, pushes into the Starks, has Sansa respond, everybody knowing that bit of information. It's starting right here as Daeny cannot break the idea of who Jon is, in seeing him up there, giving these strong speeches, encouraging the North, inspiring people. she is seeing what she used to do on the other side of the sea. And I think in some ways it would be better maybe if Daeny went back over across the Narrow Sea, ruled that part of the world, let Jon and everybody else sort of sort this out. It's not going to happen that way, but these seem to be the elements where people were their own. And Daeny now being in the north and seeing all of this, it's not sitting well with her. And we had a little taste of this later on in the big banquet scene, and everyone, nice little moments kind of again with everybody, guards starting to be dropped down, drinks starting to be shared, Daeny playing the clever person, almost too clever. That scene with Gendry really started to annoy me, because it feels like Daeny throwing her weight around. Yeah, Baratheon's son, they killed my people, they did blah, blah, blah. It's like, God, Daeny, why are you getting into this? This is not the place. But she turns it around, makes Gendry legitimate, gives him the castle and the homelands and all of these areas. And so in a way, like the little exchange was with Tyrion there, she can be clever too. She's seeing it smart. She's playing politics. But everybody is. And that's what we're seeing kind of throughout all of this. There was a great line between Tyrion and Davos. Davos is looking all forlorn, and he's like, look, sure, we may have survived them, but we still have to contend with us. And he looks out, and you can see everybody, you can see the Starks planning, and Sansa thinking, and Jon remorsing, and Daeny looking around. Everybody is starting to position themselves. There is no long wait. The dead were easy. The people are going to be much more complicated. So yeah, it's here in the banquet scene as we really start to see the snowball start to roll in regards to Daenerys' concern with Jon and the sort of threat that is going to, again, slowly build up really through this episode. And really it's starting with Tormund. Jon was given, like I mentioned, that great speech there with the goodbyes to all of the fallen soldiers. But then we have Tormund coming in, just singing Jon's praises. You're a madman, and you came up to the north, and then you died, but then you came back, and then you rode a dragon. These are tales of renown. These are legendary statements. Something like this is going to make someone huge. And Jon is already a natural leader. And we have Daenerys sitting there by herself. And that's another thing too. A lot of our people, a lot of the Dothraki, a lot of the Sullied have been taken out. Yeah, she still has her main people right there with her. But even in this scene, she's by herself. Everybody is well. Sansa's doing her thing. We got even Tyrion over talking with Jorah and having those connections and the whole drinking game that's happening. We'll get to that. And then of course again Tormund singing Jon's praises. We can see where just Daenerys is starting to feel that threat, that Jon belongs so much more, and she certainly doesn't belong here in the north. It's one of those moments where I'm also thinking, it's like, God, ultimately, wouldn't it be best if maybe Jon stayed here, ruled the Seven Kingdoms, and Daeny went back across the Narrow Sea and ruled over Meereen and those areas? She was loved, she was respected. That was a great place. She was a natural fit for that. Coming into the Seven Kingdoms as a foreigner, as a Targaryen, all that weight coming in, just not very welcoming. And also Daeny tending to rely a lot on the fact that she is the Targaryen, she is the rightful heir, she is the queen, and everybody show her some respect. Again, the Gendry scene that was sort of implying that before. So, again, we're seeing where these ideas are starting to conflict. And even talking with Jon afterwards, trying to get him, hey, you can't tell anyone. To me, that was a very smart scene with Daeny, and something I appreciated. The fact that she understands it's not up to Jon. It's something that Varys hits on a little bit later on in some great scenes there with Tyrion, talking about how it doesn't matter whether you want to be king or not. Other people will push you into that position. People that believe in you will start to say, hey, why is she queen? Why aren't you king? And you have a better claim to the throne because of the whole rules and like that. So we can see how in some ways she understands the truth behind this. And, there is an actual connection between Daeny and Jon. We almost have Jon falling back in to try and make things as they were, but, making out with your aunt, that's not really the way Jon was grown up. Targaryen's a little differently, a little more incest in their relationships. For Jon, no. So he can't even really connect with her. That relationship can't really develop, even though he has pledged his fealty to her. It may not be up to her, which is why she then says, fine, if you then want to make this work, you can't tell anybody. And of course, that doesn't last because Jon split between his family and his loyalty, and he doesn't like to trade one of those for the other. Great scene, speaking of family there, in the Godswood there, with all the Starks gathered together, and Arya even supporting Jon in his decision. Hey, we did need her. You did the right thing, and that was smart. But this is a family affair, and we need to kind of sort things out. We don't trust her. And that's the real split there between the Starks and Daeny, is that lack of trust. Sansa is very smart. She can see that she's been used to despotic rulers, and that's something that Daeny is really shifting so much more into throughout this episode. She does a statement later on where they're talking about going after King's Landing, and Tyrion is pleading with her, don't do it, all these people would die, don't kill the people that you're trying to save, don't destroy the city that you're trying to take over, this would be the wrong thing to do. And Daeny's like, hey, I'll do my best, but this is my destiny, and I'm following my destiny, and, I will try and save them as I can, but it's like, if they got to be sacrificed in order for this to happen, then that's the way it is. So even though her plan is to overthrow tyrants, my job is to throw off tyrants. A willingness to kill anybody that stands in your way in order to throw off those tyrants simply makes you another tyrant. And once the info of Jon's parentage comes out, Sansa can't hold on to it. She's going to tell Tyrion, knowing that Tyrion's going to tell Varys, and now we have these doubts, these other alternatives coming through. That's what really gets things going. Because Jon, again, natural leader. Daeny needs her advisors to steer her away from her worst inclinations. Tyrion mentions that a couple of times, has mentioned that several times. Jon doesn't. Jon can steer himself away from those darker inclinations. And I think that's really the main difference that we have going on here. Daeny can fall back into, I am the queen, and all that entails, where Jon is a servant to the people. And we get some great discussions, like I said, between Tyrion and Varys. As, again, Varys both understanding it's not about Jon. It's about what other people are going to think. And I am concerned about our queen's mental state. She is panicking. She falls back. And especially at the end, after Missandei gets killed, the great shot of Dracarys. Sure, if you're going to go out, tell them to burn the place down. Almost wanted Drogon to come out and just... But with all the scorpions, that wouldn't have worked. But especially at that point right there, once Missandei is lost and Daeny loses that closest advisor, now she's only going to have anger. She's going to be willing to cut through anyone and everyone in order to take out Cersei. She will fall to her worst inclinations. And this is, I think, where we're going to have a real problem, especially with Varys, who has said very clearly that his loyalties are to the realm, to the people, not to any one ruler. And in fact, I thought he was going to get stabbed in the back in the little discussion there with Tyrion. Again, it was a great scene. It was a great moment. But I think that also signals Varys' upcoming death. So I really thought for a moment he was going to get stabbed in the back saying all that stuff. It's not going to happen yet. But I'm guessing that's how Varys ends up dying. So let's step back from all that serious for just a moment and talk about Jaime and Brienne. Was hoping the two of them would get together. Today they do, at least sort of briefly. It's sort of a sweet, I think it was a nice build. Jaime pushing, have a drink, we need to celebrate. Then Tyrion coming back up, starting the drinking game, pushing things a little bit more. Maybe a little too much at a point to push Brienne away like that. Much to Tormund's sadness. He sees right there, especially Brienne walks away, Jaime follows, Tormund's left all by himself. I love how Tyrion just sort of fills up his horn with wine. Just, you've lost, my friend. I'm terribly sorry about that. Heartbreaking for Tormund. At least he kind of immediately gets a little bit of comfort. That's nice. Helps him sort of transition forward. But yeah, it was a nice bit. I loved seeing Jaime and Brienne together. I think they naturally fit. I think there's a lot of respect there. I love the scene where they're sort of undressing each other and just everything is nervous and unsure. And yes, it's Brienne's first time. Again, cruel on Tyrion's standpoint. But even with Jaime, with his one hand and his clumsiness, and it was just, again, it was sweet. They took their time, they acknowledged their nervousness, and Jaime seemed rather committed to Brienne to stay up in the north in order to be with her. And it was going to be a really nice ending right there, I think. Even seeing Jaime help protect the Starks would have just been a hilarious sort of change of events. But unfortunately, it doesn't end up that way. And this is sort of my question here. Once Jaime does hear about what happens down south and the whole mess. Okay, he's had a long relationship with Cersei, and in the behind the scenes afterwards, they were talking about how he has an addiction to Cersei, and as much as he's tried to stay away from her, once she hears that she's in danger, he has to kind of go back. And hey, they're the producers. They probably know exactly what's going on. I hope they know exactly what's going on. That's the take that they're having on it. However, I'm not entirely sure. To me, this is a sign that Jaime is right now heading to the top of the list of who's going to kill Cersei. Because as much as he tries to push back against Brienne and that final, again, kind of heartbreaking moment, and she's just like, you're a good person and you're better than her and stay with me, stay here. I mean, God finally opens up her heart just to have a crush. It's so wrong. But when he tells her, all the bad things that he's done, he killed his cousin for her and pushed a kid off of a ledge and would have killed everybody in River Run for Cersei. To me, it's not so much of him saying that he's addicted to her, that he has to go back to her, but of just kind of using those lines to push Brienne away so she doesn't try to follow him or do anything like that. But when Jaime is sitting there at the end of the bed right before that, thinking, what came across to me isn't like, oh, Cersei, I must get back to her. It's, somebody has to stop her. And maybe I'm the only one. And maybe it's not a conscious thought right there, but it really, to me, that's what the subtext was saying. That was poking in the back of his brain. So while he may use the excuse to go back and save Cersei, I think once he gets down there, if he gets close to her at all, and not guaranteed considering Bronn's recent brush with him, I'm really curious if it's going to end up being that it's Jaime that takes out Cersei, probably dying doing so. But I don't know. That's what it's feeling like to me. Oh, and speaking of Bronn, let's just get over that scene. Great moment. Totally is what I expected. That Bronn was just going to look for the better deal. Definitely got it out of Highgarden. But I also had to appreciate how we're just not giving a shit Bronn was right there in that whole scene. Punching Tyrion in the face, throwing, firing off the crossbow right by Jaime's head. Definitely throwing down. I'm a sellsword. This isn't about friendship. This isn't about fighting by your side. This is me seeing how the wind's blowing. And you got a couple of dragons. Cersei's definitely not going to make it. Don't really feel it. Gonna play the odds. Give me something, or I shoot you right now. And I totally think he would have. Most likely. Tyrion obviously was willing to give him whatever he wants. He's a Lannister. He always pays his debts, even if that's an eventually. But I love that scene. I just thought it was perfect, and especially how Bronn at the end was like, I'm not fighting with you. I'll find you after the war, and I'm going to get what I want. Goodbye. It was brief. It dealt with Bronn. Awesome. And of course, want to take a moment definitely and talk about Arya and the Hound separately and together. Arya, first off, how does she celebrate beating the Night King? Practicing archery, keeping her game up on top. You gotta respect that. Poor Gendry opens up his heart to her. Marry me, I'm now Lord. You come with me, it'd be amazing. We're great together. I love you. You're amazing. She lets him down so nice, intimate kiss. And no, I'm not a lady. That's not what I do. I think that was a gentleness she could have let him down. The Hound loved him getting drinks, pushing Tormund off, pushing the girls away. Doesn't want any of that. That's not his focus. This is my drink right here, the whole flask. Very houndish. Nice moment between him and Sansa. I really appreciated that. Seeing how much the Hound really has changed over the few years. I mean, everybody has. And I think this was kind of that kind of perfect moment of reflection between the two of them. Even the Hound's still trying to be a bit of his hard-ass self. Yeah, I heard you were broken in rough. And yet, the acknowledgement there that wouldn't have happened if you had come with me from King's Landing. Possibly true. Possibly could have died as well. But her acknowledgement, I mean, that's a soft moment from the Hound of like, I could have helped you not experience those. But for Sansa to even to throw back is, yeah, but if those things happened, I would have been a little bird forever. And look at her now. She's a badass. So it was a sweet moment. Even Sansa started taking his hand for a moment. It was a great recognition of, much like Bran had said, those bad things that happen all had to happen to get you where you needed to be. But then the end of the Hound and Arya riding together again, heading down south to King's Landing to do some killing. There was such a sweet little scene. Definitely almost the scene of the week right there. I've been giving Arya maybe too much of those lately. But it was just so perfect. How alike Arya and the Hound are now. Even the line of, are you going to leave me to die then? Probably. Maybe. We'll see what happens. Even he had to sort of laugh and appreciate that. These are two hard asses that don't care for company, know they may not be coming back. They've got a mission and they're dedicated to it. With all the travels they had done together, the fact that now they're riding together again, heading down to King's Landing, God, woe be to anybody that gets in their way. Oh, and I did mention it before, the scene with Tyrion and Sansa up on the wall, I thought, where Sansa eventually tells Tyrion, what if there was somebody else? Really appreciated that moment. And first off, I like Tyrion and Sansa together. I like their dynamic. There's sort of there is that level of respect, I think, both ways, and having survived some horrible things together, I think that bonds people in a way. But the whole idea is what was it that Sansa had asked, why her? Why Daeny? And then even more so after that, you're afraid of her. And I think, again, this not only, I think, stimulates or encourages Sansa to tell Tyrion, but seeing that that Sansa's distrust of Daeny is well placed. That even Tyrion, who is fighting through the whole episode, even his discussions with Varys about, you can pick different people, then finally you find one and you fight for them. Tyrion's whole thing in this is he has dedicated himself to Daeny and will fight as hard as he can to try and maintain that. He bet on his horse. He's gonna back that as far as he can. Wants to be there for her, believes in her. But even Sansa here can see it. You're afraid of her. And Tyrion's line of, it's every rule has to inspire a little bit of fear or something like that, starting to feel very empty at that moment. And I think maybe that's what encouraged Sansa to finally break that promise. Though she's also very calculating, so how much could just be an emotional response and how much is like, we really need to start nipping this in the bud. But I think seeing that in Tyrion just let Sansa know everything that she needed to, that even her closest advisors have fear for her. So what happens when she gets true power? Now she's just power adjacent. Becoming queen of the Seven Kingdoms, that's true power. If you fear her even a little bit now, what happens then? And that's, I think, why Jon's secret ends up getting revealed. All right, and for this week's Scene of the Week, we had a few choices, honestly, in this. Like I said, I love just that quick moment of the Hound and Arya riding down south, trading barbs and seeing how similar they are. That was perfect. The discussions between, especially in Dragonstone, between Tyrion and Varys about Jon, and that Jon's choice means nothing and he doesn't want to be king. Maybe someone who doesn't want to be king would be the best king. Also, it's not up to him. Other forces are going to push. And Varys here really, again, committing himself to what's best for the realm, signaling, I think, where his demise is going to end up being. These are very powerful scenes. The Arya scene, that was great. The one with Tyrion and Varys, I think, very telling of what we're going to see going forward, of the real machinations, the real issues that we're going to have with leadership going forward. But there was one scene that just made me go, yeah! So, of course, that's going to be it. And that is the death of Rhaegal. I know I was calling him Rhaegalon last week. I'd watched the Godzilla trailer, I think, many times before that. So you have a Drogon, you have Viserion, Rhaegal. Just doesn't sound the same. Anyway, but yeah, I was very excited to see him alive. Wasn't sure after last episode, and now they're heading south to Dragonstone, and they're all cheering and riding. We got the boat down there, and we got, Daddy's like, yeah, and Rhaegal's like, yeah, and then suddenly, oh, and then through the throat. It was so sudden and so perfect being ambushed. Man, Euron he's like the ambush king right here. And they were totally having their guard down. Daeny and everybody else there having their guard down, just thinking they'd just go back to Dragonstone, that Cersei's just going to wait them out. You got to have scouts up ahead. You got to watch what's going on, especially against someone like Cersei and Euron. I mean, the two of them, just deceptive, backstabber, ambushers. I mean, really very smart in the whole battle sequence. But that whole scene, starting out right there, the shock. You have those moments of joy of just riding along, and then shunk, those scorpion bolts going right into Rhaegal, and then in through the neck, and then he goes down, and then they turn. Then we have Daeny flying up, just gonna do like a machine gun run on the on Euron ships right there. I really think you at least should have fired off before you steered away. Also, that big steerway just kind of exposes your whole broadside. At least you have a narrow frame. Also, couldn't you have flown around the back? It looks like the scorpions were just on the bow of the ship, so maybe come around the backside. Doesn't matter. All very terrifying, especially once those scorpions get turned onto onto the Ironborn fleet and just shred through it. Great shot of Tyrion just scrambling around the ship as it starts to explode around and by him before he finally has to jump. I mean, it was just, it's such a moment of peace and then total panic and terror and immediate defeat right afterward. It was such a turnaround moment and done with just beautiful stylings. It was magnificent. Again, cheering moment and go moment and just, very impactful, very emotional, and really that's where the tide has turned, because of course that's where Missandei is taken, and that's kind of signals the end of Daeny being reasonable. Poor Grey Worm. Really feel it for him. Alright, just a couple of small things. One, Ghost. He survived! Yay! Very excited to see that. Not the worst, a little worse for wear, but still made it. Very happy. Understand Jon and Tormund going back home. Again, also a sad moment right there. Saying, take Ghost with you. He belongs in the north. Direwolf doesn't belong down in here, or the northern north. I don't like the south. This is the north, you realize, right? It's for Tormund, this is as south as he wants to get. So understand sending Ghost away. That's going to be a better place for him. However, don't give him a goodbye pet. Give him a snuggle. Give him a hug. That really bothered me. That Jon just looked at Ghost, and Ghost is like, oh, I'm gonna go. And Jon just like, wanders off. Man, Ghost looked sad. He looked like he wanted at least a final pet. A little belly rub, a little hug. Should have done that, Jon. It's wrong of you not to. Now I know Benioff and Weiss had mentioned they're going to try and do less jetpacking in this season. Last season, people were getting various in places very quick. They're saying they're going to call back on this. Not entirely sure if they have. Mainly saying that I think Cersei should be showing a hell of a lot more. Just told Euron, I'm pregnant. Yay, got a little prince. You know, which is actually Jaime's kid. So this has happened since Jaime has left, gone up north. Bronn has chased, gone up, encountered them, done the battle, come back down south, or Tyrion's come all the way back down south to stand off with Cersei, and she still is not showing. So, a month less, something like that. I mean, maybe, I guess. It really feels like, especially with Tyrion saying, I know you're pregnant. Euron's got to be thinking Qyburn must have mentioned something because you just told me, and he's been up north. How does he know if it's my baby? Maybe that's what he's going to be putting together next episode. But yeah, just saying, with all that movement, Cersei should be showing maybe a little bit more. Alright, well, I just looked at the clock, so I think I've talked long enough here. I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. So yeah, basic movement around, said goodbye to those that died during fighting the Night King, placed our chess pieces. Next week, we are going to have the attack on King's Landing. It's not going to be a siege. They're not going to wait them out. Dany's going in with dragons and the Unsullied. There's going to be a lot of dead people because, of course, the human shields that Cersei's pulled up into the Red Keep. Yeah, it's going to be bad. The real question is, what's going to happen between Daeny and Jon? Because Dany's going to go more psycho. That's going to worry everybody else. And at some point, she is going to be turned on. Not in that good way. I mean, people are going to come against her, who are her own people, that type of turning on. So yeah, think we might see a little bit more hint of that tomorrow. 2 episodes left, and the show's over with. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Cannot wait to see how it all wraps up. But we're going to wrap things up for now. Thank you so much for joining me on this very extended review. And as always, if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments? Throw those down in the section below. What do you guys think of the episode? What were your favorite parts? You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Quick and easy one button press. Just hit this button right here. You won't miss any of the reviews. Coming up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. premiering Season 6 this Friday. cannot wait. And we'll throw up a couple of reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.